Hi, I'm Parris and I'm Head of Customer Value at WARC and WARC, and we are partnering with the Black Cultural Archives to amplify the voices of Black marketers throughout history and for the future. And this has come about from months of trying to understand how we use our influence at WARC to influence the industry and understand where and why and the impact that Black marketers have on brand activism, on diversity, on branding, advertising, everything in between. And something that WARC are really committed to is making those changes in our industry and influencing from the inside and via our content. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, and the brand are completely behind, and hopefully it's something that we'll be able to carry on into the long future. Hi, we are joined today by Dr Glen Yearwood. If you want to give a little bit of introduction about yourself, Glen.
Wow, how long have you got? Introduction myself, let's start with the most important part of me, is my spirituality, my spiritual self. So I'm good, I pursue love in terms of energy and frequency, and I settle for equanimity, all things being balanced. I've returned back to this side of the world, having lived recently, the last 6 years, in Australia and Southeast Asia. So I'm just acclimatizing, and driving through Brixton the first time in 6 years was a bit of an awakening. But I'm delighted to be here and to talk a bit about me, a bit about what I've done. So that's it, really. So spiritually, I'm good. Got some other challenges, but the spirit's, it's buoyant.
And just to start off with, I think the first time we spoke, you mentioned that you see yourself as a storyteller. Yeah. So in the context of the Black experience, what would you say the importance of storytelling is?
Now, there's a question. It sits front and centre of my experience as a Black man. And to answer that more succinctly, I will draw your attention to an African proverb, which I learned when I was very young. And the African proverb goes something like this: the story of the lion is best told by the lion and not the missionary. And our ability to storytell is the foundation of everything we do. Mm. You seldom see on documentaries, particularly David Attenborough documentaries, a pack of hyenas allowed to rear a lioness or a cub. Then why are we the only people who allow people who don't understand our story or have our agendas to rear our own? So it's important. I'll go further than that. It's profoundly important that we tell our own stories. And my role as a storyteller has come late in life, but it's something I've absorbed. Mm-hmm. It's my whole being, my ability and my capacity and my drive to tell stories about my experience, which tends to be the Black experience.
Mm-hmm. And then you touched on it just at the beginning. You've obviously lived a very wide and varied and interesting life. What are the 3 things you would tell your younger self when starting your career that's like kind of brought you to be the man you are today?
Well, I'll probably start with the hypothesis that it ain't deep. It's not deep. And I've always held the view that my outcome is defined by my positivity. So I've never subscribed to what people say about me or my people or people who look like me or Black men to bring it down to an agenda. I've always held the view that your outcome is predetermined by your worldview. So at the moment I have an illness, and the doctors on 2 sides of the world tell me that I'll never walk again, and I've got a rare autoimmune disease, and doctors are not my best friends. I actually believe I will walk again and play football again, and I'll overcome anything, because every day I tell myself, today's a better day than yesterday. Do you see what I mean? So the need for positivity in all people can dictate outcomes. Conversely, if you think failure, if you hate, if you carry guilt, then they tend to be manifested in bad things. So I err on the frequency of love.
And obviously a part of your rich background and everything that you've done has been in marketing as well. How did you kind of find your start?
I think I failed to be a doctor. In short, I finished university and I was searching for a job, classified ads in The Guardian back in the day, spoke to this woman. She says, "You've got an extraordinary voice. Why don't you come down to London and we'll see if we can place you somewhere with that voice. You can sell stuff." I came down and I joined the Sunday Times. And I kept telling stories there because London, the UK, has our story hidden. And you know, we tend to paddle this view, don't we, in the UK, that we are an ethnic minority. That's profoundly wrong. We're not a minority. We're part of 2 billion people in the continent of Africa in 55 different states. So how can we be a minority? We are a minority if we believe we're a minority. So my storytelling has been from the world view that we built this world. And every plausible explanation of civilization by the Europeans have come from Africa. I've done the history and I've done the sums, I've done the maths, and I can tell you that everything that the Greeks have written about Egypt has been based on people who look like you and me. So when I storytell, my building blocks is an extreme confidence that I'm saying the right thing. But also on the shoulders that I stand, ancient Egyptians, the Moors. I was raised not only in Luton but also in Tottenham. Do you know in Tottenham, in the borough of North London, there are roads dedicated to the existence of the Moors? Moor Lane, Black Prince Road, Jamaica Avenue. Our history is ubiquitous everywhere. And I would love the new generation of marketeers to be able to tell their stories without fear. You can only tell a story if you have some experience. So what we've got to do, we've got a lot of work left to be done. But I'm not interested in watching a TV commercial about a brand without first understanding what the story is. Don't try and sell me something unless you understand what my story is. So it's all about storytelling.
Absolutely. And just going back slightly to your start, did you feel like you had, or did you have any allies at the time when you started that kind of helped to guide you through your start in marketing?
I think it was my fear of fear was my ally. I became a young father, and a couple of the realities was that I didn't make enough money, or couldn't make enough money to bring my daughter up. So I got this job. It wasn't brilliant, I was okay at it. Then something happened. Something inside of me clicked and recognized that I didn't want to go the other way. Well, we'll just leave it at that for the moment, but where I come from, there's a couple of routes for black men, and there's the other way. And I made a decision I couldn't do that. My mother won't forgive me if I'd done that. She raised me. So I had this great ancestral team. And if you sit like a football match, on my bench were my grandmother and generations of black women. And 3 of those generations were obeah women, soothsayers. I couldn't possibly fail. How could I? How could I fail when I go home on a Sunday and have stewed chicken, macaroni cheese and coleslaw, and sit there and look at the women folk in my house and tell them I was about to fail, he wouldn't wash. So I didn't have anything physical in terms of allies. I had a spirituality which I was aware of, which I still see now, and I see my ancestors in flies, wasps and things that most people don't. So that's it. It was a fear of failing, but also I knew that I was in good hands.
Absolutely. Okay. And you touched on it a little bit earlier before about marketing being in good hands. So a big thing that's very important to a lot of people at the moment is personal growth, including like career growth. Right. What would you suggest to the next generation and to people who have influence in the industry to make sure that the black voice is in good hands?
Well, there's two questions there, sort of interloping as one. So let me separate that. The first thing is, the future is in good hands. I think it is. I just returned back to the United Kingdom when Black Lives Matter was marching. I think I flew in that weekend from Australia. And I was taken by not only the diversity, though that's a rich word, I don't really want to use that too often, but I was taken by the representation of millennials, agnostic of their race, agnostic of their gender, will just come together in so-called lockdown and raise their right hand for justice. That gave me a warm feeling, because my children are part of the millennials. So the future is in good hands, because I think we're about to enter an era where race and mired in race becomes less of an issue. It's what you've got to offer. And you see that in all over. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I've noted that my passion being football, at least 50% of the playing staff in the Premier League now are black. When I first started playing football in the serious level, it wasn't the same. So I think the future is in good hands in terms of the millennials coming through. I think the importance of telling one story and the black experience, I think, is equally important. And I look for triumphs. You're not going to get it all the time, triumphs. So what are the triumphs? Can we have in our educational system, for everybody, the importance of Nancy stories? I was raised on Nancy's story by my grandmother, and you will know that Nancy's story, it comes from Ghana. It's about the spider, but it's life-affirming. And you can start seeding young people coming through, regardless of their race, of Nancy's story, because if we have Jack and Jill, we've got Nancy's story. We've got to have enough room in that for the black voice to say, actually, I'm not seeking your affirmation. I don't want to be a white man, and I don't necessarily want to marry a white woman to be successful. So the affirmation doesn't come from people who curate your life. Affirmation comes from within. Do you understand what I'm saying? Whether that affirmation is music, whether it's athletics, seek your own affirmation. And the final observation on the black experience is that we've got some cracking stories. We've got some cracking stories. We've got 25 Egyptian dynasties. We've got 2 billion people in Africa. We've got East Coast Africa, West Coast. I've lived in Kenya and I know Nigerians. I lived in Mali. I lived in Malawi. And the point I'm making is to really understand the black experience, get on a bloody plane. Get on a plane, back yourself, take a risk. Go and sit on the bottom of the Kilimanjaro and see what effect that has to you. My passion is coffee. Go to Ethiopia, go to a region called Sidoma, and taste coffee with people who founded coffee. And every time you go to Starbucks and spend $5 or £5, understand that the Aroma tribe in Ethiopia have discovered coffee in the 1800s. Why is it called Aroma? What's the combination? But that's our people, that's our history. And that new year doesn't start on the 1st of January. It starts 7 months later on when the Nile floods. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the storytelling is the only way we can illuminate the black experience. But to do so, we've got to go on a journey.
Absolutely. And then one of the great stories that you have is BET, which is an incredible network and channel, and I have lots of feelings about it. Yeah. But I'd love to hear from you, like what kind of difficulties or things you didn't expect to experience when setting up BET in the UK versus where it started in the US.
Should I tell you how I got to BET,
Yeah,
which I think is equally as rich as getting the BET business? I was on hard times, a young father, and although I was super qualified, no one would give me a job in the traditional advertising agencies. So I rented a small room, which was then called the Truman Building in Brick Lane, and me and my dog would go in there, and I'd gone bust. The landlord had said to me, look, you've used your credits, you've got to go. My relationship with my daughter's mother was falling apart because I couldn't bring home money, essentially. And I shut my eyes, and in desperation, I said, who in this world can give me a job? And I contacted BET, because everybody knows Black Entertainment Television, so I thought I'd try my arm with them. So I rang them up from Brick Lane and said, can I speak to Robert Johnson? And they said, Mr. Johnson no longer owns BET, but why? I said, my name's Glen Yearwood, I'm from London, and I think you should be launching a channel here. I said, okay, well, if we're going to launch a channel, we'll let you know. And the lady on the phone, who I never did meet, she said, what's your name? And I said, Yearwood. And she didn't say anything, which, okay, fine. She puts the phone down. And as I was clearing out the office and the bailiffs were coming, yes, it got that bad, the bailiffs were there, my fax machine rang, and the fax machine was used as the phone and a fax, such was the time. And I picked up the fax machine, and this African-American boy said, you must be Glenn. And I said, yes. And I said, are you another creditor? And they said, no. We've got a new vice president called Michael Armstrong, and he wants to launch BET across Europe. And we've got your message. We don't know much about you, but your message simply says, give me a chance. Now, that's a message of desperation, but it's also a message of hope. And the woman who took the message and blocked me from getting through to the CEO of BET, her name was Michelle. And I didn't know this, but she asked my surname, Yearwood, because Yearwood is unique to the Caribbean, and it's unique to Barbados, St. Vincent. My people from St. Vincent. She was married for 40 years to a black man called Yearwood. And she qualified that I was black. She couldn't tell by my voice or my accent. And I got the gig without it, really having to pitch for it, and I turned it around. So when people associate me with BET, it's a great brand to work with. I have some challenges for BET. I think they should be doing more educational content for their audiences, but that's an argument I no longer have to have with them. But actually how BET found me, is the way I like to see it, is the real story of my relationship with BET. Well, my role was, I ran a marketing company in the UK called Soul Marketing. My role was to do everything with BET to launch them in the UK and across Africa, and to take some of their best programming and do events in London. The Wendy Williams show, for example, I brought Wendy over, done a show with Wendy, and Wallace Hickson Park, a British version of it. And I took a mob of British people to the BET Awards in Los Angeles for 4 or 5 years. And that got me exposure to very young Jay-Z, very young R&B acts. So it was good for me, and I put some money in some pockets. I hired, eventually, 25 people and put regular incomes in their pockets. And I was happy to do that. Very happy to do that.
And what were if you were going to kind of drill it down to 3 things that was unexpected in the difficulties in launching BET in the UK and Africa that you weren't expecting because it was already so prevalent in the US, what would you say those were?
Well, the challenges. the biggest challenge I had with BT was to getting my backers, African Americans, to understand the language of the diaspora. So you go to Africa, you can't go to Africa with an African American channel because it's that. And we would have moments of tension when I would ask for more budgets to create programming in local accents, British accents and African accents. But they had this worldview that everyone loves BET because it's Black American. I'm saying that might be so, but it's not going to last. It would have a sell-by date. And that was the biggest challenge, getting people in America to see the Black experience as a disparate and varied experience. The other challenge I had was being the man behind BET and going to my local market on a Saturday to buy my plantains and my sweet potato and my cassava, and having Black people say to me, look, you're the man behind BET, we don't want to see any more rap videos and Black women wearing bikinis and doing stuff on there. So if you've got any influence on that, get them to stop and start doing some programming. And that brought it home to me, because what was coming out in my front room through my TV was not always the stuff I was proud of. Do you know what I mean? So the tension started to build within my mind, and when I flew to Washington, DC on a regular basis, my tune became quite repetitive. Give me a budget to do programming about the wider Black experience, or I'm going to walk. And yeah, well, everything has a sell-by date. Famous song from Boss Skaggs says, I'm a perfect guest, I know when to leave. And, you know, there's something in that. And it worked, I got more budget, I hired a bunch of people. But I'm really happy for social media being the preferred platform for young people to get their content, not sitting around a TV anymore.
Do you feel like that is the future of the Black experience being told?
I think it's the only way. I think narrowband platforms where people can say, I'm interested in this subject, and you can have it, you can fill your boots with it. That's the way forward. I really don't believe that the future is encapsulated by people sitting around prime time watching TV. I think that those days are gone, and you see that a little bit from the way the news is covered. People in my house avoid the news because it's all about coronavirus. It's almost every day to another day. It's a league table. How many social distancing, how many people are going to die from it? So I think you've got to look at media that talks to you. And right now, at this moment, music talks to me.
Absolutely. And you mentioned previously, you went over the topic quite quickly, but the importance of the industry and the importance of having more people at the table or in the rooms who look like me or you, or someone who's Black or brown, is so important. What do you feel like brands got wrong, let's say like back in the day, and what should they be doing now to truly be that kind of representative brand?
I think that the starting problem we have as Black consumers, as Black people in the UK or in America, is that our lives tend to be curated by people who don't know who we are. So you switch on the TV and you watch a program and you see a pair of sneakers, and you see a Black athlete, or we call them jocks, advertising some sneakers, and you look at each other and says, okay, well that's great, but what's the story behind the Black family buying those sneakers? Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's not enough to pick issues around Black people and think you can sell it to them. So music, trainers, and most of the Black people I see on TV, albeit I don't watch a lot of TV, have been jocks, have been athletes, successful athletes. But there's a Black story that's deeper than that. And for every successful athlete, there are people, there are agents, they're successful lawyers, they're successful mum and dads. Do you see what I'm saying? And for us to be fully immersed into the British way of life, you have to take us as 360 degrees. What is our diary? We wake up in the morning. Well, I'm coffee mad. It has to be a special coffee. It has to come from Ethiopia. Great. I'm a granddad now, so I want to spend a bit of time on the phone with my grandson. I'm an uncle. I've got a nephew that's 14. He listens to a range of music I've never heard before. So that's really interesting. And I talk to my girls, my daughters, 2 or 3 times a day about anything that comes up. When do I have time to consume media? Well, if there's football on, I'll make an appointment with the telly, and I'll go into the telly room, and I'll be there for 90 minutes and I'm gone. And I put my headphones on, I'm planning a radio show. Now, if you've got my media diary and my lifestyle diary, you'll see that you can only get me maybe during a football match or maybe when I'm listening to my radio show, preparing my radio show. But the other bits are also important, about how I spend my money, who I talk to, who I engage with in my household. And that's what's missing, because we are perceived to be ethnic minorities, and the brand dwellers believe that they can pick us off at moments that they think are of interest with us. You know, the jocks, the music. Well, actually, if you look at the black experience in terms of an age demographic, we're aging 45 to 50 to 60. And if we are descendants of the Windrush generation from 1948, then most of us are grabbing our pension. And something else we haven't talked about for the black British experience is that emigration of black people, black middle-class people, back to the Caribbean and to Africa is the biggest emigration. And we're sat watching black people coming from Spain and Africa and thinking, why are they leaving? But they don't tell us that on airlines leaving London are a brain drain of black people who have gone back and taken their chances because of Windrush, because of a hostile environment. They've gone back to where they've come from and making a go of it. So that's the black experience. Until they know that, please don't try and sell me any gear, because I won't buy it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to end it on. Thank you so much.